scary police got people scared to speak. Tell your story, tell your story, tell your story. Can't nobody tell a better pain of glory. So tell your story, tell your story, tell your story. Better you than people finding out I'm more. So tell your story, tell your story, tell your story. Can't nobody tell a better pain of glory. So tell your story, tell your story, tell your story. Better you than people finding out I'm more. Tell your story, man.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Thank you for joining us on our Malcolm Vast. This evening we have Miss Sondra Young, everybody. Oh, hold on. Someone's playing in the background. Okay. We have Miss Sondra Young telling her story. And I'm excited. I can't wait for her. Look, she looks all beautiful and everything tonight. Y'all, I'm so excited. We have Miss Sondra Young telling her story. Yeah, if you have any questions, use the reaction button on the clap reaction button. And our disclaimer, what we talk about here on Macam, our views, our questions, our opinions do not represent Macam as a whole. So please do not hold Malcolm accountable for anything that you may, hear that you disagree with or whatever, But Miss Sondra, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. And you're looking gorgeous this evening. So thank you. It's hard to keep up with you young people. Where do you want me to start at? There's so much I could start with. So I'll just tell you about how I got involved in civil rights in this social justice work, maybe. So I'm from a small town outside of Memphis, Tennessee, and many of you probably have heard this story, so bear with me. So growing up, we were born in houses. We were not allowed to go to the hospital yet because Black people couldn't go to the hospital at that time. And so I was born in a small house by a midwife, which some of you that may have been born in the country understand that's how they had us with the midwife. And so my mother at the time was following Dr. King. Memphis, we right there. So of course she was with Dr. King. And so I was born in, I'm not gonna tell you when I was born. Anyway, so Dr. King had already been assassinated when I was born, but we were still not able to go to white hospitals or anything like that. And so my mother decided at that time that she would become a nurse. My brother, who was 5 years older than I, had died recently during that time because we couldn't go to the hospital. And so he had died at the house because that's how it went. So my mother became the first Black nurse in our whole region. So that kind of just got us really involved in the civil rights movement. My father, who was from Mississippi, actually went to school with Medgar Evers. And I told this story, and my aunt from Oakland was part of the Black Panther. She actually was the nurse of Huey Newton's mother. So I'm really entrenched in the civil rights movement. It's very important to me. And it's very important that we engage young people in this work because we're getting old. And if we know anything about the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s, it was your age that did this work. It was your age that was boots on the ground. And so it's imperative that we get you all involved and get you to understand the system and how the system works and how you fit into the system to make changes. Because it's not the power of the people, it's the people, it's not the people in power, it's the power of the people that really make the difference. And so we need you all to get involved and see what the next steps for you are in this work to do. You want me to keep any more? Let me keep going.
Yes, please. Keep
And
going.
so I was working. I used to be an investment banker. I'm actually an industrial psychologist now. Things have changed, but I was an investment banker, and I got asked about the NAACP. And in the South, it's a huge deal. Here, not so much, right? So people were getting to learn it. So we joined in and said, okay, let's just get involved. And I became the president by just a circumstance that happened. And I actually didn't even know I was the president. I was the first vice president and was told, oh, you're the president now. Some circumstances happened and I became the president. And for the first year, I was very afraid. I didn't know. I had led a nonprofit for over 20 years, but I had never led people that looked like us for over 20 years. And that's a whole nother leading of people. So we jumped in and we said, we got to make it work. And so I can say in the last couple of years that we have been successful in doing the work, and it's been exciting doing the work, and it's been even more powerful pulling you all into the work, because it takes all of us collectively to make the change. And we'll see that the change won't happen until we unite and really be able to make this change. So
Excuse me, Miss Young, but we do have a question from our founder. Go ahead, Phil.
How you doing, Miss Sondra? It's good to see you.
you too.
It's good to be seen. I want to, you jump straight into it, like straight from like, okay, I come from here and now I'm right here. You know what I mean?
Okay. Let me slow it down.
I'm interested in what got you, like what values was installed in you, where, like, when did you come to Denver? You know what I mean? What,
Okay.
I want to hear them stories. You know what I mean? Look.
I always try to be slick. So like my family moved here, like I said, my mom was a nurse, and there weren't a lot of opportunities maybe in where I'm from, this place called Cartersville. So she moved here, and she married my stepfather when I was 2. Of course, at that time, old people didn't let you go unless you could talk. So my grandfather didn't let me come with my mother because we couldn't talk. I was 2. He said, you're not going nowhere till you can tell the story. So I stayed in the South till I was a teenager. And then we came here, and my parents, we lived in, at that time in the neighborhood, everybody was Black in your neighborhood, basically, right? And so we were like supposed to be the upper middle class people, because my father is an engineer. My mother was a nurse. But my brother made sure to keep us on the street. So my brother started selling weed out of our house when I was about 12. And my brother's like 8 years older than me. So he would take me riding. I learned how to drive in Denver at 12 too, because my brother would get high and make me drive him down MLK Boulevard. So my brother kept us very grounded in life. I can just tell you that much. And so he sold a lot of weed when my parents went to work. And so we were like, I don't even know what you would call us, but we would be like, Victor, there you have guests, and he would come and do what he wanted to do, and then he'd tell us, if you tell, I'm gonna beat you up. So we were very quiet with that. But that's like, just really being grounded. And my parents, my mother was a person that she didn't care who you were going to get a good meal at her house. So she would pick up soldiers from the bus stop. It wouldn't matter where you were at. My mother was going to feed you. And we were raised deep in church. My grandfather was a Methodist preacher, and my mother was an evangelist, and my uncles are all preachers. And so I was really raised in church, like going to sleep on the bench and waking up and going home late at night and staying the whole weekend in the prayer meetings. Mark, you know what I'm talking about? Because you should, where you stay at the church house, basically, you part of the choir. And when you live that life, they make you, if somebody ain't there to sing, you sing it. If somebody ain't there to testify, you testify it. If somebody needs the tambourine played, you paying the tambourine. That's how I was raised. It didn't matter if you didn't know how to direct the choir director don't come, you the new choir director.
I understand 100%.
You that too, huh? And they make you, but it's good though, because you turn out to be somebody that you never thought you could be, and you'll turn out to be able to give thought to people that you never thought you would, right? Because you can really relate. Because it doesn't matter where you are, you can make it happen. Wherever they place you, you can survive, because you've been made to survive wherever you are. And so trying to be cute on this picture, okay? And so so that's how I was raised. And so I didn't know anything but community service, because we had to give all the time. When they went out to do worship, in the park or whatever, we were there passing out tracts or whatever it took. So all I knew was community and how to give back. And my mother was this person that, like I said, we were supposed to be like the high-end people on the block, because both my parents had such great jobs. But my mother would take anything that you liked too much and give it away. If you had a pair of shoes that you just idled and these were the shoes of life, she'd be like, give those away. You don't have anything that you can't not let go of, because who people are much more important than what you have and things. So I wasn't raised to really respect things. If you ask me for a Louis Vuitton bag and I have it, I'll give it to you, because I wasn't raised to hold on to stuff like that. I was raised to always be giving, because if your hand is shut, you can't get more. And so that's just how I was brought up. Anything else, Philip, that you need to know?
Do you have siblings?
I do. So I actually have 4 sisters and 3 brothers. And yeah, my father was a Rolling Stone. Every 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 reunion we went to, he had another child. I'd be like, this is your sister who, this is, but I'm the youngest, so this is they to take my position. But yes, I have some sibling, and I love my family to death, and I can never understand when people say that they haven't spoken to their mother or my mother died when I was 20, first of all. So I remember coming home from college, and that summer, my sophomore year of college, was the year that she passed, and it was very difficult to even return. So I always, when I hear people say I haven't spoken to my siblings or my family in so long, I can't understand that, because having your family around you is so important. And I know sometimes we say, oh, they don't support me, but they really do. And sometimes people have been brought up where they don't know how to express love. And so you have to think about all of that. All of us have not been brought up in love, and so we don't know how to give love. And so we have to turn those tables around and always be on the end of giving love back to whomever, back to our community, back to our friends. It's just imperative that we always are in the position to give love.
Excuse me, Miss Young. We will have a few questions for you actually. So we'll start with Tabitha, then Terea, and then myself. And then if anyone else wants to go, we'll do that.
Okay, so I just have a few. Well, I have a few questions, but I'm gonna like try to keep it at 2.
Okay.
But my first question is, what was your parents' position in the church?
So my father was a deacon. So he always said, Baptist born, Baptist bred, when I die, I'm Baptist dead. But my mother was an evangelist. So my father was really over the church money. He was a financer in our church. And so when my church bought another building, my family led that in bonding to make sure that they could afford the building. So because, like I said, they had decent jobs, they were able to carry the church a little bit more. And my mother was a choir director. She actually wrote lots of music. My father still gets royalties from the music that my mother wrote. So she was a choir director, an evangelist. Like I said, she was whatever they needed her to be, the Sunday school teacher, the preacher. It didn't matter at that time. You just fit in where you get in.
Okay. And then my second question is, were your parents ever married? Because you say your dad was a Rolling Stone. And from what I understand, a Rolling Stone to be is a man that goes out and sleeps with multiple women, because I could say that about my dad. But
so my father, so I always say my dad and my father. So my father is who birthed me, and we're still, we always had both men in my life. I just want to state that. So my parents got divorced from my father when I was 6 months old. My mother married my dad in Denver when I was 2. That's why I never came to Denver. But both of my parents were married. My mom was married to my dad, and she divorced him because he was a Rolling Stone. And that's why she got married to my stepfather. And Rolling Stone is just what you said. That's why I have so many siblings, because of my father. Yeah.
I see. And okay, one last question. Just
Okay.
one last question. So, so was your stepfather the one that had the position in the church?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so your biological father, was he a church going man at all, or?
Not at all. My biological father lived in Chicago. So every summer we took a trip to Chicago to see my dad. So summers were raised rolling down the streets in Chicago, going to positions that we shouldn't have been in, if you ever been to Chicago, it's very segregated. So you weren't supposed to probably be in Germantown, but you would be. You weren't supposed to be in Jewtown, but you would go. You weren't supposed to be, in Chinatown, but the food was good. So we would get on the L train and just ride all the way through Chicago. But my father was not in church at all. God rest. Well, he's still living, so yeah, he needs to get in there for sure. Yeah, he had a lot going on at the time, but he worked for the railroad. So like I said, I always had a father and a dad. And so I'm blessed among many to have so many men, excuse me, that loved me all my life.
Thank you so much for answering my questions. I believe we're gonna move on to Mark.
Yes, thank you, Tabitha. So my first question is, um, yeah, I'll start with, so what was your relationship like with your siblings?
I'm very close to my family. I tell them I love them all the time. I talk to my brothers and sisters at least once a day, um, especially my sister that lives in Denver with me. Like I said, we're very close. I don't know anything but how to love, and I don't hold grudges. So no matter what you do to me, I'm going to come back. I don't know how to hold a grudge against anybody. I just don't, I wasn't raised like that. And so, yeah, we're really close. I love them.
Awesome. And what's your highest level of education?
So I have a master's, I have an MBA, and I'm working on my additional master's in industrial psychology, a few credits away. And I have a Six Sigma, and my undergrad is in conflict resolution and leadership.
Awesome. Where'd you attend school?
I went to Regis University, I went to Adler University, and I went to God, what's the name of the school for my Six Sigma? Villanova, my Six Sigma. Yeah. So
Interesting.
yeah, I've been
Uh,
around the world.
that's awesome. I have no more questions. And if there are none from our guests, then please continue.
I got one more,
Okay.
and then he got one. So my question is about, your educational background. I feel like the time that you spent in the church did teach you, some type of discipline. And so, how does your faith and, your time spent in the church influence your educational background and where you are today, basically?
Well, actually, it was my parents. Both of my parents are graduates of HBCUs. And so we didn't have an option growing up. Either you went to school or you went to the military. It wasn't like you could sit around the house and play video games. You had no choice. And so that is really what persuaded me. You didn't have a choice. You had to go to school. And so, like I said, my mother was the first Black nurse. So how do you follow that and not go to school, right? Or how do my father my father actually used to teach at Alcorn State University. So how do you follow up not going to school when you have parents that are so much into education? And growing up, we couldn't bring a C home. It was just not going to happen. So we had to graduate with honors because this is how my mother and father looked at us, like, you are smart. You're not going to spend your time in front of the TV. They always told us that we could be who we wanted to be. I always knew about Black civil rights heroes. I mean, I remember being in elementary school, like the sixth or seventh, well, maybe the seventh grade, and maybe like the third grade, Shirley Chisholm ran for president. And that was the first Black woman that had ever ran for president. Before there was a Kamala, and I know I just said her name wrong, Kamala, I would say her name wrong, but Madam Vice President, before there were her, there was Shirley Chisholm's working. There were so many, I can't even think right now, but there were so many Black women in the political field doing the work. And so I remember going to Shirley Chisholm for Halloween. I had a big mole on my face and I was going to be Shirley Chisholm. And we had just we don't teach that to you all right now. That's the pioneers that have really forged the way for us to be in this game. And that's what's important. And that's what leads you to be who you are and where you really want to go, because you see these people being chief justices. You see these people running for offices. And so now I just feel like, with the NAACP this summer, we want to have a freedom school. And the freedom school is just not only to tell you that you're free, but to teach you about the people that you never will learn about. That's imperative. To teach you about the languages that come from Africa, French and Spanish, all that's from Africa. And I just feel like we need to engage you guys into that, because French is an African language. If you ever go to Africa, most of the people there speak French. And then when we were colonized and we went on the slave ship to Dominica, we were speaking Spanish. So I believe all of those are part of our languages. And so I would like us to really engage in that and really see ourselves speaking those languages and really being global learners. You okay? Any more questions for me?
I'm all
Um,
right.
Okay.
I'm okay. I just like what people don't know is even before we went on slave ships in Africa, Africa was colonized by the Spanish, which are white people,
Mhm.
and you Spanish from Spain, so that's how Spanish came about, and
Yeah.
so
And the Moors were there, and we never talk about that. And so I
right.
want our children to really learn those languages. And I feel that I actually feel that our kids should be learning those in kindergarten because we need to be global learners and we need to make sure that our kids are on the same plateau as everybody else. I got new carpet a couple of weeks ago, and the young man that came over was very young. He was probably like 15, but his boss didn't speak English. So then the total time he was like, talking to his boss, interpreting to his boss. And I'm thinking to myself, a Black kid should be able to do that also. They should have those languages in them to be able to do those jobs. And as we see the world change, we'll see more people speaking different languages. We know that um, Asian is is it Asian? That's not the word I want to say. Chinese is the number one spoken language. So we need to be learning Chinese also. Chinese, we need to be learning Spanish. We need our kids to be able to be on the same plateau as everybody else in terms of being able to get a job and to learn. So we need to be fighting for those things as we go along. That's where we need to be at.
I completely agree. I completely agree. I actually, when I went to Germany, a lot of the, Caucasian, aka white people over there, they spoke more than just German. They spoke
Mhm.
English. They spoke various other languages. And in the United States, we're one of the only countries that go to other people's countries and expect them to speak our language. So
Yes.
yeah.
I think that you make a very valid point. But I think Mr. Mark, Rev Mark has.
G was first.
Oh, G, I forgot. Sorry, G. My bad.
It's okay. Tab, you kind of asked my question. My question was just, what was like your like your college experience like? Especially having so many degrees behind your name. Like, what was your college experience like? Like, how did you enjoy it? How did you not enjoy it? And what advice would you give to young people who are pursuing the college route?
Well, I loved college. I went to college on a track scholarship, first of all. So I ran a little bit. And when I got there, I found out that I hated running track. I found out that everybody else was having a good time and I was going to the track and I was like, hated it. So I called my mother. I'm like, I can't do this. And she's like, okay. So I actually turned around and got an academic scholarship because I just could not do track. But I enjoyed my days. I'm a Delta. So I enjoyed the time that I was there doing my thing. I even wore my elephant ring tonight. So you guys can see my Delta-ness. I enjoyed it, like I said, but when I came home and I lost my mother, I was not too excited about that. So I did not return to school immediately. I actually ended up getting married and having a daughter and then a son and then going back to school. And that's why I had to attend Regis because I had two kids at that time. And but I do tell people to follow your dream. Your dream necessarily may not be school, but if you have a vision, you have to put your all into it. And I think the one thing that I see in young people that I need to see more in you guys is tenacity. Really putting your hand to the plow and staying with whatever you want to do. Sometimes we get discouraged if things don't happen quickly, but that's not how you build something. That's not how you bake a cake. It takes a while for you to get all the ingredients together and then to bake that cake and make it look beautiful and be presentable. And so I just tell people, don't lose your dream. Your dream sometime you may think is not coming together, but keep your hand on the plow. I started a business when I was in college, and I still have that marketing company. And so keep your hand to the plow. And that's how you see things really happen. So don't give up, don't give in. If you get tired, find somebody to lean on because we're all here to lift you up and find who you can lean on. And don't find yourself in negativity. Like shake that off. Shake off people that want to be having you taking stuff back and forth, really being negative. Find yourself in positive situations, doing positive activities, and then you'll see where you're supposed to be. And I know a lot of you may not even know where you want to go, but every morning I ask God for direction, and so should you, because where he wants you to go, you need to ask him, like, what is the best way? What's the easiest way? How do I get there? And so I would just tell you all just to seek direction.
Thank you so much for that answer. Like, I don't, God just used you for me because I needed that. So thank you so much for
Oh,
that
you're
answer.
welcome.
But Rev Hill, it is on you, sir.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to ask a question earlier in your statements. You talked about the fear you had when it was time to take a leadership position in a predominantly African American group. Can you speak to the dynamics of that fear and what was different from the original organization and then to that?
Well, when I came into the NAACP, there was someone named Manola Upshaw that had led this work for years. I don't know if you all are familiar with her. She had led this work literally for years. And coming in, people told me, you're not going to be able to turn that organization around. It's an organization full of old people that ain't going to do nothing but kill your spirit. And I said, oh, no, that's not going to happen. Because I came from the South, and it was a big thing in the South to be a part of the NAACP. Like, young people got out of college and high school, and they were like, yes, yes, yes. We can look at Dr. King. He started at 16 in the NAACP as the treasurer, as the finance treasurer for the youth. And so we can look at Jamal Bryant, who was in Atlanta doing great things, but he was a youth president for years. And so I was thinking, I'm gonna come and I'm gonna change. And everybody in Denver was like, you're not gonna change. You're not gonna make no difference in these people. And I can tell you for 4 years, they were right. For 4 years, I was not successful. For 4 years, I fought with my seasoned people for 4 years. Every day, every time I came, if I said the sky was blue, the sky was green. And so I was like, okay, listen, we got to find another way to do this. And so we were able to kind of shift the paradigm and really get some younger people on board. And not saying that the seniors and my legacy people are not loved and needed, but we needed to have just a shift of mind, right? And one thing that I think that everybody has in them, and I tell people this all the time, is influence and persuasion. I believe that everybody has that in them. And it's how you use that, not to be manipulative, but everybody has the spirit of persuasion in them. And so I was thinking, okay, I would take my charm and I'm going to change it around, but it really takes a whole unit of people to make things happen. And so we were able in the last 2 years to change how that looked, and just to see us really being in service, because the NAACP, as you all know, we don't get paid. It's all volunteer and we all have jobs. So sometimes it's not as easy to do the work, but I think when you let people see that they need to be used in service, they need to be transformational when they're working with people. And so I was afraid, because I had the stories, and, when Manola Upshaw was here, a lot of young people were, kind of pushed out. And I realized that I needed them. I needed young legs. I needed young voices. I needed young thoughts. And so I didn't want to push them out. And, and we came to the meeting and they were like, there's no voice for them here, but we always need their voice, because if we don't have their voice, like if my kids don't come over, I don't even know what's hot. I don't know who's singing any songs. I don't know any word, I don't know the new lingo unless my kids come over and be nice to me and give me about 45 minutes of teaching. So I just wanted to make sure that we encourage them, but that was not the point that they had been at. So we're here now, and we're so excited about where we're going, and our future looks bright. And if all of y'all are joined, we'll be even brighter. Did that answer your question? I hope I did.
Why do you think there was pushback
With the people here?
With the older folks that was in the, you know what I mean?
They just didn't want change. They didn't want change. They wanted to keep doing the same old thing, having the same old voices, doing the same old stuff. And you don't make change that way. I mean, this year we had, I hate to do these and I really am a better speaker than this, so don't hold this against me. But we had a sticker party, which had never been done in Denver, where you could tune in and hear. We had Funkmaster Flash and like 4 or 5 different other DJs. No one has ever did that in Colorado. And at first they were like, oh, don't do that. We had a caravan down Colfax, and I would just want to thank the Denver police. They were exceptional to us. They led us from the Martin Luther King statue in City Park all the way to the Martin Luther King Library in Aurora, because Aurora wouldn't pick us up. And Denver's police took us all the way there, stopping traffic so our people could come through and so we could honk horns. And those were things that people had never done. We had never had a Black voters weekend. We were just all about the Black vote, getting the Black vote. And so we were able to get over 800 people, new people registered and educated in voting. And so those were things that I was getting pushback before, like, oh, we don't need to do that kind of stuff. But those are the things that excite people. You know, they get people involved, they get people motivated to go to the polls. And our end result is what they were not looking at. Like, you have to do things that are now. We can't do what they did in 1909 when this unit started. We can't do what they did in 1965. Not that those were not good ways, but just like anything else, it needs to be, you have to upgrade and change the method, not the message, but the method always has to change. And the message has to be relevant, right, to what's happening today. And so that was the pushback. They didn't want to change the method or the message.
I mean,
to
so
make it
with
relevant.
that, and with that coming from our elders, with that coming from those who we are supposed to stand on their shoulders, you know what I mean? How did that make you feel coming in, getting that kind of attitude coming from them instead of them helping lift you up? You know what I mean?
It was sad. It hurt a lot. I cried a lot. My sisters and my family was like, quit them people. You know, like I said, I spoke to many people in the city and they were like, oh girl, that's a ship that can't be turned. But I wasn't raised to give up. You know, no matter what. I just told you I ran track and I thought I was the best. So I was not raised to give up. I was raised to keep going. And if you stumble and fall, you'll be all right. Dust your knee off. I'm from the country. You're gonna be all right. They beat you up this time. Next time, you may win. You may not win, but you may. And so I always put it in the back of my mind. I may not get it today. They may hate me today, but one day they're gonna see that I'm really serious about this, and hopefully they'll join in. And if you don't want to join in, then you just drop out, right? And then you let the next team come on and run the race. This is how that works. And so I was discouraged in many a nights. I can tell you, I cried in many a days. Like, God, are you sure? But he told me where I was going. So, you know, when he tells you what you got to do it.
Yes,
You know, and it may not be easy, right?
Yes,
but that doesn't change the work.
Yes,
you still
indeed.
have to get the work done.
One more question before I pass it on to Taps. You know, we run our podcast, you know, where we talk about the issues within the Black and brown community, you know, the destructive behaviors that we see. All right, what would you say is one of the most deadliest and destructive behavior that you have seen amongst our community, amongst our culture?
I think we just spoke about that, not encouraging each other. You know, when we look at the brown community, they always say our community. Have you ever noticed that? They never say, oh, their community. They always say our community. We never say that in our community. We never refer to each other as our own community. Like when I speak of you, I should say, this is what Philip is doing in our community. He is so-and-so is doing this in our community. We need to help our community. And we have not had that. I don't see that in Denver. I hear stuff like, just because you skin folk don't mean, just because you can folk or skin folk, something like that don't mean you skin folk. I've never heard that before until I came to Denver. I've never heard anybody say those words to me until I came to Denver. If we are skin folks, then we are kin folk. I'm from the country. If I see you, we borrow sugar from each other. You know what I'm saying? We borrow 2 eggs from you if we need some if we need 2 eggs. We buy a cup of sugar if we need to make Kool-Aid. That's what we do in the country. Up here is like so different, like people are not embracive of who we are. And we can even see that in the political arena. We had President Obama, the first Black president. Did he do everything right? No, of course not. But just the influence that he had on our African-American men. We had the greatest time of turnout from African-American men and women voting. That's impressive to me. You know, he may not do everything right. I look at our own mayor. He may not do everything right. Even Mayor Webb did not do everything right as the first Black mayor, but they were there. You sitting in this position, you may not do everything right, but you're here. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we have to celebrate. We need to learn to celebrate each other, because nobody celebrates us. If we don't teach our kids in our community to celebrate us, who is going to celebrate us? You don't see them going on TV celebrating us. We seen the insurrection that happened last week at the Capitol. Those people didn't get shot because they knew who they were working with. They knew they were working with their own people. They were not afraid. These are my people. But if we go there, we're shot. But we had other people sit on the outside saying, they should have been shot. No, they shouldn't have been shot if they were Black. You know, I'm talking about when Black Lives Matters. They were in their houses, Black people saying that Black people should have been shot. How do we do that? That is the most destructive things in our community, is that we have not learned to love each other and work with each other. We're not perfect beings. They're not perfect beings, but it's the love that you show to build people, to make them who you need them to be and not tear them down. I always tell people, if I think the greatest thing was said was from Senator Raphael Warnock. He said, if you are in traffic causing confusion, it's because you have no purpose. And I think that was the greatest quote from 2020. The only people causing confusion in traffic is people that have no purpose. So if we find out, if you don't have a purpose, give them my purpose. Find out your purpose so we can celebrate each other. And if we don't, we're going to continue to be at the bottom of the pole, still hollering about what we could have, should have done. And we still letting everybody stand on our back and our shoulder instead of supporting each other so we can climb. So that's my thought on that. I'm sorry, I felt preachy for a minute there. Calming down now.
There,
Dr. Pepper.
all right. Thank you for sharing. Go ahead, Taps.
All right. So I hope you're ready for a little pushback. I'm just kidding. But so I basically my question is really surrounded around voting, because I feel like African Americans, or just Black people in general, got the right to vote in like the late 1800s, and then women, the women's suffrage thing happened in like 1913. And so like, but even with all these years that have passed with us having the right to vote, literally nothing has really changed for us. We're still getting gunned down in the streets, and the way that policies and things like that are kind of complicatedly configured, especially with like gerrymandering and stuff like that. My question is, do you feel like voting is going to be the way for us to get up out of this state of oppression that we're currently going in the United States? And if you don't, do you feel like your work is in vain? And if not, then how do you feel like, voting is the best option for us?
Okay, like when I started, I said, it's not the people in power, it's the power of the people difference. Your power is greater than the people in power, right? And if we have a plan, if we come together, then that's the people's power, and the people have power, not the people in power. And I think that what I would like to see is seeing more African-American people get involved in the procedure, in the policy, and the policy making. We need you all to be on the city council board to talk about gerrymandering. We need you to be on the board as gerrymandering and redlining. We need you to sit on the boards to talk. Did you give me the finger? She was like, no, we need you to sit on the board. We need you to sit on the board and change women's rights. We know that Black women have the highest, lowest birth rate rights and highest infant mortality rights. We need Black women to go into those fields and make a difference, right? We need Black women and Black men, not Black women just only, but Black men to become nurses and doctors. We need you guys to become politicians and lawyers. We need to change the recidivism, how recidivism rates look. We need to change about who's in prison, but we need people in power making those choices, because that's where it comes from. We need you guys being the district attorneys, applying for those jobs, getting those positions. Then we see change. Change can't be talk only. We have to think beyond the policy. And I think sometimes we get locked up in that, but it's our voices that make that policy and make that change. And we know that. I mean, if we look back in history, it was policy that did Brown versus the Board of Education. It was policy that did Voting Rights Act in 1965. It was policy that did the Housing Rights Act in 1968. It was policy that did that. And so that's what we have to start. It was policy that did the Crown Act. It was policy that did the policing intervention. And I think they're doing more on that. I see the Denver police at the top. And it is policy that did the social equity for cannabis. So it's policy that makes a difference. It's up to us to put the people in there to make the policy. And those of us that are not making the policy, our voices got to be loud to the people that are making the policy. Because like I said, the power is in the people.
Okay, so I think that, there's too many, there's not enough, successes of, African American and people of color overall to say that, we've gotten to a point where policies are actually positively affecting our communities. Because, like, think about it, Brown versus the Board of Education, black students are in classes with white students, but from what I learned in Alabama, I lived in the South too, but from what I learned living in the South was, we're suffering as far as like literacy rates and things like that, even though we do take up these spaces. And it's hard for me to, celebrate those small those victories that we do have because of those disparities or people that fall in the cracks of, the way that the machine is set up. Like, I just feel like we're a bunch of cogs helping this machine just to keep, trucking along. And
but when we have students that are not succeeding and excelling, how many parents are going up there saying something? Let's talk about that. How many parents are saying, okay, Tabitha got an F or a D. Why did she get that? She's been here every day. Show me the books. How many parents are going up there saying that? Some of the onus has to be on us. We can't expect America to give us anything. They never have. They brought us here as slaves. That says right there that they don't expect much from us. It is for us, like I said, to have the power in our hand and say, I'm going to go up to the school and see what's going on. If I need to do a fundraiser, I used to be a teacher. If I'm going to have a fundraiser, I'm going to make sure that the kids at the school have what they need. I used to teach, I graduated from Cherry Creek High School. Not one time can I say that I've seen any lack in that school because the parents brought whatever we needed. Whatever we needed, they brought that. We now have to come to that mindset. If they say that we need crackers in school and kids are tired during the day because of whatever, then take your EBT card and take some crackers up there for the kids to have for snacks. If we don't want them to have the sugar and the stuff that they give us, we have to do some of this. Some of this has to fall on parents. Some of this has to fall on you as a young woman. If you want to see change, you have to be that change. Bottom line, they're not giving out anything free. If you want to see changes in redlining, then you find out how to make change and who you need to talk to down there at the legislation. You bring your people together and that's your fight. I teach it not this year, but in the past, I've always taught at Front Range Community College. And so when I was there last, they were like, I met these young Hispanic girls, and I never knew that when ICE picks their people up, that they don't have a chance to call back to their families and say, I'm in ICE. So they may be gone for two or 3 weeks and people don't know where they're at. So I told her, I said, well, that's something that you can fight for. Do you not know they made a coalition, called some people, some Hispanic legislatures, and they're working on that now. We have to be like that. Be the change you want to see happen. Nobody's going to give you anything in this world. It's set up for you not to be a winner. It's set up for you not to win. When you go in the rooms, I'm usually often the only Black person when I get there, and I'm immediately shut down when I start talking about social justice. But I don't let them stop me because I keep raising my hand every time they take one water break. I have a question. I need to ask this. I need some direction on this right now. What we talking about? We can't let them get away. You are the change. And everybody young on this podcast, you're the change that needs to happen. Don't say, I don't believe in voting because it ain't changing. You change it. We got here because somebody said to themselves, I'm gonna make a change, right? Just saying.
I feel you. I understand what you're saying. And, I feel like change does start with us. And I feel like a lot of times what it is a lot of people don't want to get up and do the legwork. Me personally, I just graduated from the University of Colorado, Denver. And so I was like one of the only Black students in my class, you know what I'm saying? So, and I graduated at the top of my class. So now it's like that next step of going to like law school and trying to figure all that out. But at the end of the day, like, I don't know. I look at like people like Paul Butler and other public defenders that went out there trying to make a difference. The woman that wrote the new Jim Crow, cannot remember her name,
Michelle Alexander. Yeah.
Michelle Alexander. People like that make like small differences like that. They're public defenders, but you don't see things changing on such a major scale. And not only that, but they got us in student loans. We don't have parents that have money, so we're just stuck. And then the kids that don't have parents that show up, my mom definitely wasn't on me about my grades. I did that for myself. But like, she was at work all the time because she was a single parent. And it's just, the struggle is real for a lot of parents. So I get why we're not the ones at the PTA meetings and we're not the ones, you know, showing up, because a lot of times our schedules don't permit us to show up, you know?
Okay, so why can't we change that? I was a single mother. I got divorced when my kids were young. Change it. There was not a time at the school that they could tell me anything about what was going on with my kids, because I'm coming up there. And they knew in the middle of the day, I could drop in. If I had a day off, I may swoop through. But we have to have tenacity, like I said before. The bus, let's just look at the Montgomery bus ride. That was 368 days those people had to walk. They could have gave up after 2 weeks. Like, this is hard. But you can't make change if you give up, right? 368 days, these people walked to work, got rides, hitchhiked, whatever it took to make change. If we're not willing to do that, you just talk. And I tell everybody, talk ain't even cheap. Talk is free. You got to put your hand to the grind to make it happen. And if they telling you that the schedule for PTA is at 3, then you're going to say, no, that ain't going to work. I'm going to need PTA to go to 7. I'm going to need PTA to start at 7. And you get a group of y'all, PTA is starting at 7 before I go to work. Because I need to see what little Johnny's up in here doing. And what you doing with little Johnny up in here. Because there's always time. You take time for what you want. Like Bill Cosby said, there's always room for Jell-O. You take time for what you want time to be in, right? I'm just saying. Tabitha, girl, we got to have coffee.
I'm here for it, just saying.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just asking, is there anything else you needed?
I was gonna ask, you know, we've been talking about the Black Plague recently in our podcast, you know, the crack epidemic. Mm-hmm. You know, some people, they like to consider it or say surviving the crack epidemic. You know what I mean? And I'm always like, what do you mean by surviving the crack epidemic? We had parents who died in OD because of it. We had parents who had got sent to prison and stuff because of it. Where were you? What were your parents doing, you know, when crack had came in? How did you avoid it? Did they avoid it? You know what I mean? Around that whole element, the whole gang life as well.
And that was like in the late 80s.
Late
right?
80s, yeah.
My mother had already passed, and at that time I was married, so I got married in the 80s. So, I mean, I had some friends and family that went through that, but that really didn't impact my family necessarily. Like my brother in Chicago, yes, he may still even be on crack. It really impacted them in Chicago, in the larger city, and I guess there was no answer, right? We see it was not comparative to opioids according to white America. They needed help. We needed to be locked up. I was glad when Holder came in and dismissed a lot of those charges off of our people. But I think that right now what we have to fight for is to get that off of them, get that off of their record, that they went to jail, because that's what's holding our people back. That's what's holding them back from getting student loans. That's what's holding them back from getting housing. That's what's holding them back from getting jobs. And we have to fight for those things, because we got them off of crack and we got them out the system, out of prison, but they're still in the system. Mm-hmm. And they're not able to get jobs and move on. And I don't think that we look past that. Like, I can get you out of jail, but then what happens when they go to pull up your record and they see that you've been in jail for drugs, and they say, we don't want you at our job? Or you go to get a student loan because you want to go to school, or you can't even get, not a student loan, but you can't get a Pell Grant, which is free. You're not able to have that. You're not able to get housing because you have that on your record. So we need people, as Tabitha said before, we need people fighting for those rights. We need to be looking at who can fight for those rights of our people so they can move forward and go to the next level. And we have failed to do that. And so we need to find out what our fights are. And then sometimes you're in a fight and you don't even know why you fighting or who you fighting or what you fighting. I know y'all been there before. They push you in school and they just start fighting on you. You just like, why are they whooping on me? And then you don't even know why you in the fight. And you in the middle of a fight. And so I think we need to understand what we're fighting for and how that is really going to impact our kids and our families, impact us in the long run. So we need to look for people that fight for us and fight for what we need to have fought for.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Go ahead, Jake.
Miss Sondra.
Okay, excuse me. Excuse me.
Miss Sondra.
Excuse me.
I don't know what it is, but God is really using you to talk to me because, like, I just been got a lot of pushback and arguments with myself lately in different areas, and I think, like, I really think He just used you to tell me what my fight is. But I forgot my question because in the midst of you talking, you gave me a revelation. So I don't. Thank you. I just gotta say thank you. I don't get, like, my question got lost in the midst of you saying, like, I really need to stop being disobedient. That's just, you gave me a revelation. So thank you for that. What time is it? Any other questions, guys? Questions. Okay. Oh, it came back.
You know, what's one jewel that you live by? What's one life lesson that you teach? What's something that you would want on your gravestone when that time comes?
I was thinking about that today, and it was find your voice and know your tone, right? Because both of those are important. Knowing your voice, but actually knowing the tone that you give in your voice, because that makes a difference. Sometimes people can't hear what you're talking about because you're screaming.
Oh my goodness.
Sometimes people can't hear what you're talking about because you're confused.
Oh my goodness.
Find your voice and know your tone, because they have to be able to receive it. And not all the time, I tell people this, not all the time do we have to kick the table over. Sometimes we just need to be at the table and be able to have conversation about what's going on before we kick the table over. So know your tone and know your voice and follow that, and always go by discernment. That's, hopefully they put that somewhere on my epitaph, you know, she found her tone.
I love that. She knew before she was going to shake a table. Why she's going to shake a table? You know?
Just turn it over. Just kick it over. But if you don't know your tone and you have not been invited to the table, I think sometimes we all get caught up in misconception and not understanding, right? And my people perish for the lack of knowledge and not having understanding about what's going on is where we perish, because we don't try to get all, and we as people are known for this. We don't try to get all the detail. We just get enough detail to act like we're smart. We don't know all the backstory. We just know the front story. So always know your story and always use the right tone, because you can get more done with honey than you can with vinegar. And not saying that sometimes they don't need to be doused with vinegar. I'm not saying that at all. Sometimes they need to be screamed at, shook at, stomped on, all of that. All of that has to happen. But always know your tone and know your story.
I love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Glenn, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I had it up for a second. I just wanted to say, Ms. Young, thank you so much for that last comment, because Mr. Douglas, if we just talked about that today when we had our conversations about how people, in different interactions with the police, they'll pop off before they even know what's going on, and how that can start an issue right away, even with me. In my career, and as smooth as I try and be interacting with people. And we talked about how I think just in our culture, when we get rattled or excited or we want to make an argument, our voice just becomes amplified and it goes up. And even me, I still fight that today, because it was just when I grew up, that's just how we got. I got excited, my voice went up, it got high pitched. And, that's just one of the things that we need to, I think, recognize about ourselves. So I'm just so glad you made that last comment. And I just wanted to comment on it and say thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for saying that.
And it's crazy hearing it from, the police, you know what I mean? Because, when somebody escalates their voice, it's almost hands on the trigger fast, you know what I mean? And, that's one thing that we all need to work on is how we say certain stuff. And that what you had just said, Miss Sondra, just hit it right on the head too. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And when I say tone, sometimes I mean to just, wherever we're at, right? Not necessarily in the middle of conflict, but when we talk, period, just how aggressive are we to give? I mean, if we look at Martin Luther King, the reason I'm only prefacing him is because it was just his day on Monday, because there's so many other people to look at too, not taking anything away from him. But his tone was always, let us come, let us reason together, right? And so when you come in, you can reason, then you can get things done. But if you always are at the aggressor, as the aggressor, no one, even in your own personal relationships, if you think about dealing with your significant other, if it's always aggressive, can you hear what they say? Do you want to hear what they say? You're like, oh, she's full of noise, or he's full of noise. So I just think just knowing that, overall, is just knowing how we interact with people. And another thing I want to say is just really look at yourself as being transformative, and really changing the world, because it's you that's going to change this world. It's going to be all of us collectively changing the world. And so we have to learn how to work together and make skin folks be kin folks, if we can.
What's up, Tabs? Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so I liked what she said about your tone and your volume and things like that. I know for some people, I'm sorry to throw the police out there, but when everybody reacts to like certain situations differently. I know me, when I deal with the police, I become super submissive to what the police are saying. Hi, sir. I'll roll my window all the way down. Hi, sir. What did I do wrong? Is there a reason that you stopped me? You know what I'm saying? But some people, it's fright or flight. I'm one of those people. I'm fright. I freeze. I stop. Uh-oh. I freeze. But some people, like, they get like, oh my God, bro, what's going on, man? I don't know why that happens, but that is what happens. And I think that's like that separation piece in between, like Martin Luther King, not saying that he was like more submissive or anything, and Malcolm X. Malcolm X was like, by any means necessary.
Mhm.
And then you had your Martin Luther King was like, we're all in this together. This is High School Musical. We got this, and so I think that that's one thing that we all don't have. We lack those communication skills. You know what I'm saying? Because we've grown up in such volatile environments that we don't know how to effectively communicate. And I think that would, if we all knew how to effectively communicate and like had those talks about how to interact with certain people, then we would all be in a different place right now.
But I mean, there are certain times, like you said, that your tone has to change. Like I said, there's times that you can come and reason, and there's times to kick over the table. And Martin Luther King was let us reason. Malcolm X said, let's kick over the table. And then Black Panther said, we coming to fuck in, excuse my language. But that's how it was. And there are different times that that's necessary, right? I'm not saying all the time that you got to be submissive and docile. Sometimes it's time to turn this mother out. But you got to know the time, right? And I think that all comes with just knowing your tone, because sometimes your tone has got to be loud. We had to get loud when we see our brothers being drugged and killed in the streets. It's time to get loud, right? Our tone has got to change, because they're killing brothers for no reason and killing sisters for no reason. So our tone has got to change. But let's find out what's going on, and then let's get it together and then change our tone. But I do agree that there's sometimes there's not all the time can we be quiet. Not all the time. Sometimes you got to fight, right? So I think it's just knowing when you need to have the certain tone. Know your tone. Like, it may not always be a quiet tone, because my tone is not always quiet. Sometimes my tone is like, no, you didn't. Let's meet you outside. You don't even know me. I'm from Memphis. I will slay you. Like, sometimes that's my tone. And then other times I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't even know what you're talking about. Go on with that.
Miss Sondra, you needed me on your team, so you don't even have to do that. Look, Miss Sondra didn't have, look, don't make Miss Sondra go Memphis on you, because look, I don't want to see it. I do not want to see Miss Sondra have to go Memphis on somebody. So before she have to go there on you, you got to deal with me.
They take you with me there. They take you with me. They be trying to draw me there. They be trying to pull me in. I'm like, they're gone there, gone there.
We can't have that. No, man.
Y'all are
Look,
funny.
Miss Sondra, I want to thank you on behalf of Malcolm for coming onto our platform this evening and
Thank
just
you.
sharing your vulnerability, your story, you know, dropping the jewels and gems that you dropped for us. You know I definitely got something. Me personally would love your, if I could have your contact information, I could, you know, speak with you, because you definitely, you know, spoke to me personally. So I, you know, want to thank you for that. I appreciate you. Right now, we're going to give you our Malcolm appreciation. I ask everybody to come off of mute. We're going to give you our famous Malcolm 3 snaps.
Part two.
Part two, yes, a part two. We gotta have you. We have to have you back. Yes, Miss Sondra,
Wow.
we have to have you
I
back.
get a part two?
Yes,
I am feeling like all honored now.
Oh man, we are honored to have you here with us.
I want you guys to join the NAACP. We're really trying to start our youth portion. Like we said, we want to get kids to understand, especially civics, right? And so most people don't even know how civics work. That's not a word that you guys even know. You're like, civics? So we impeached Trump twice, but nobody really knows what that means. When we were young, we had conjunction, function, what's your and they tell you all about how to make a law. You guys don't have that. So you'll remember that, right? You can go outside on lunchtime. You had to listen to conjunction junction. So we would love you to join us. NAACPdenver.org is $30. If you don't have it, let me know. We'll get you in, because Philip got all the money. And so
Get it from Sondra.
all the money. And Mr. Glenn, we expect you to join us too. So, you know, thank you all for having me. I've enjoyed you ladies and men and gentlemen so much. We have to just have a coffee day. We must have a coffee day on me really soon. Yeah, call me, please. This goes right to my cell phone. So if you call me, you guys will definitely get me. We have to go out and have some lunch or something really soon. I've enjoyed myself immensely.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you for
Okay,
having
y'all,
me.
here we go. 3 snaps. 1, 2, 3. Wow.
I was all off rhythm.
It was off. Yeah, it was off. It was off. It was
It's
off.
all good.
That's okay. It's okay.
All right.
Thank y'all for joining us. Y'all Malcolm out there. Y'all make sure to subscribe to our Facebook channels, you know, our different pages, the Make a Chess Move, the Make a Culture Move, the Virtual Artist Storyteller, Pushing Pawns, Malcolm chess lessons, and all of that. The YouTube, the Instagram. Get you some Malcolm gear. Get you some gear. You feel me? We have gear. My hat's not on right now, y'all. But thank y'all. Thank you everybody for joining. You know, tune in next week. Next week we back at it Tuesday, 7 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. We are back at it with some more vast next week. So yes, thank y'all and enjoy the rest of y'all's night.
Good night.
Thank you again, Miss Sondra Young.
Yes,
it's been a blessing.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, G. Thank you, Tabitha.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Philip. Hi.
You could call me Tabs. It's okay.
Tab. Okay. All right, Tab. I got you. You know, my nickname is Sunny. You could call me Sunny. That's who I am. That's who I am. That's my nickname in the world.
Okay.
All right. So thank you guys. Talk to you soon. Reach out to me.
I will. You all have a good night.
All right. Peace.
Peace out. Peace out. Still gonna message me during the whole interview or whatever, talking about some she said young thoughts or something that she said.
Feels annoying, okay?
She was going off like we need like young people, young ideas, young thoughts. And then Phil was like, she said young thoughts. And I'm just like,
It was so annoying. Like, dude, you're gonna get kicked off.
I'm saying, like,
You're gonna get kicked off. Phil, I know you watch these after, okay? You're gonna get kicked off.
Exactly.
But that was a good one, y'all. Miss Sondra,
Yeah.
she dropped some nuggets. She dropped some nuggets. Oh my gosh, she dropped some nuggets, man.
We've
But
had a good couple of weeks of good guests.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. I ain't got nothing.
Yeah. Debrief is same as usual. You know, can't wait to bring in more people.
Okay, cool. We on podcast tomorrow. See y'all tomorrow.
Yes, indeed. See y'all.
Are you gonna be at the office, Mark?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna be at the office. Okay.
Were you already going? Because I could stay home.
No, I was planning on going.
Okay. All right, I'll see you there.
All right, see you there.
See y'all.
Bye.